So basically you have 4 months of pitch black, you have 4 months of pure sun, and then you have the 2 seasons in between that are a mix. But oh yeah, it was dark. That was another perk as well, was the winter time, because we're at 9,300 feet of elevation, to look around, if you can get away from the facility of buildings and look away, everything's downhill, and there's no mountains, no obstructions. So if there's no clouds and no sun, you just simply lift your head up a little bit over the horizon, and at that point, everything on planet Earth drops out from view 100%, and there's no difference from you being in space or not. It's really pretty. And the density of the stars and what you can see there, I mean, I don't know how to explain that to anyone, and I don't know that it could look any different or better from space. And that's basically why they had the South Pole telescope located there, because of the atmospheric conditions. It is so thin, it does allow for these devices to work with much greater precision due to all the lack of atmosphere and light. A lot of it has to do with light. They get a lot of light intrusion in other places. I've seen the Aurora Australis in the wintertime at the South Pole, and yes, it is beyond beautiful and beyond description. It's also beyond the camera. I don't know if people really truly understand that, but when you sit there and you actually look at an aurora in real life, the camera does no justice to what you are witnessing. And I know from the folks that I was there with at South Pole that, yes, they could figure out how to manipulate the camera to get a shot. But then what you see, I mean, I've seen the picture of what I was looking at, and I can tell you that the picture sucks compared to reality. It's just like a washout. You have to leave the camera lens open in that environment to absorb enough light from that you're trying to get, which is the aurora. But then what happens is it makes it look darker than it really is in reality, because you need to get that light to get a contrast in the background. So it's very unnatural looking. And it takes away all of the life of the aurora, because in reality, there's no stillness to it whatsoever. An aurora is like alive. It's like an energy. It's making noise, lots of it. It's sizzling, it's crackling, and all of that noise and all of that motion, when you're looking at it, it's like, I was just gonna say straight in the face. It really has a life to it. And it seems to me almost like a photo of the Aurora Australis is not indicative at all of what I saw. You can see different colors. I've seen purples, greens, reds, whites. You can totally see colors in the auroras, but it's like, there's really like a motion, like an ocean. There's like a flow and a movement and different densities and stuff going on. And to take photos or video of it, you're really bastardizing reality through that medium just to capture it. Okay. It doesn't do it justice. My favorite part was the noise, actually. It was almost like, it was electrical. It was some sort of sizzling. It was like almost a static electricity in a way, but it had, you know, like when you're listening to a stereo and you hear like the when you first turn it on and it's like really loud, but there's nothing playing yet. It's just like that boom. Yeah. But you can still feel it like going through you, like, you know, the music's about to kick on. That's like what the Aurora was. It was like, it would make this sizzling and cracking sound, but you could also like feel it. Like it was like, you could be like walking sometimes and you would hear it first before you saw it. And it was almost like it was like calling out to you, like, oh, where is that? I hear it. I hear the sizzling. There's an Aurora around. And you would go like looking for it. And then you'd look over and there it is. It's over there. But they were pretty common. I thought they were fantastic. We were all outside. And an aurora started, and it was one of the strongest ones that I had seen the entire time that I was there. So again, considering we were at the legitimate geographical South Pole, we were looking up at a complete ring around the pole of green aurora. and it was a very thick band, and it had like some spinning going to it. But we all laid down. We all stopped our task. We were like, hold on, we got to watch this. We all put down our tools. We all laid down on our backs at probably minus 80 some odd degrees ambient. And we all just were looking up at the sky because it was freaking gorgeous. This giant green ring. It looked like flames in a way. It was like green flames churning around. And then at times it would look like from one side, as if we were calling it charging up. We were like, oh, look, it's charging up. It was like energy was pouring into one side of the ring, and you would see like increased activity in the churniness of it as this was happening. Yeah. And we're all like oohing and ahhing and stuff. And then it would do that for a while, like it was charging up, and then the entry of more energy would like cease, and it would like go crazy for a while, and then all of a sudden it would like discharge out 180 degrees opposite from where it had entered on the other side of the ring. After a while it would like exhaust out, and then the ring would settle down for a while, and then it would start to charge up again. And we would see this happening. We'd be like, it's doing it again. It's charging up again. And we would just keep watching this happen. And, you know, it was really cool. And then, you know, finally we said, we're probably going to freeze to death. We should go back inside. People really have no idea how much we've learned on this planet that has not been disseminated. That was one of the things that I learned. I've been working in government programs now for solid 10 years, in research programs from South Pole Station to Barrow, Alaska. I mean, from the bottom of the world to the top of the world. It really saddens me to let you guys know that you are investing a lot of money that you're not getting a return on. And worse off, you're getting lied to all the time too. Go to the University of Wisconsin and look up the IceCube Neutrino Detector project. It's run through them. Look how much money has been invested in that program. I believe it's to the tune of, well, this was 10 years ago when they were turning it on, actually. That's another thing, too. I was there for the switching on of that. When they went from construction to firing it up, operations and maintenance, I was there. That was part of my team.
Do you know what it does?
I know many things it can do.
Are you wanting to talk about that?
I'm working on that, I will say. Okay. I am working on that. It's like many systems that the government funds. It will certainly do the thing that it is presented to do, and it can certainly do something else at least. And I would suggest that it's very worthy equipment of study. I'm studying it myself. I don't want to fire off half-cocked on certain statements. But again, anybody else who wants to study the IceCube Neutrino Detector and the University of Wisconsin and all the money going into that facility, join me. If you find something out that you think is interesting, I think it's a very interesting facility. Neutrinos are interesting. Even the science behind this stuff. Even if you just start with what's the presented science, a lot of people don't really know what's going on and what a neutrino is and why they're doing this science. We could start with that. I mean, a neutrino is a near massless particle moving at, or I should say moving close to, at, or beyond the speed of light was what they were considering when I was present at the facility. And that's what they were looking for. They have now confirmed this. So it's awesome. But what neutrinos do with that telescope is they go flying through the ice. I'm sorry, at the detector. They go flying through that ice. And when a neutrino contacts the nucleus of an ice molecule, it breaks apart the nucleus and creates a new molecule, I guess you would say, known as a muon. And it also expels in that moment a flash of blue light. So the detector, they have these things called the DOMs, digital optical monitors, these basketball-sized circuit board sensor thingies that they have strewn all through the ice, thousands of them through miles of ice depth and all kinds of stuff. It's a huge, huge, huge array set up in the ice. Huge, massive. So the depth of, so that they would basically drill a hole in the ice that would go from the surface down about 2 miles. Each one of these holes, they would then drop down a string, a cable. They call it a string. On that cable, at certain intervals, say, I don't know, every 4 or 6 feet or whatever the heck it was, they would have a DOM, say the size of a basketball. Each one of those DOMs is a sensor. Each one of those strings is 2 miles long. And if I was to say that the ice cube building was in the center of this array, first and foremost, I love sacred geometry, and I can tell you that the ice cube neutrino detector array shape is basically hexagonal, which to me is a very interesting sacred geometry thing for lots of ways. But each of those strings set up in this hexagonal pattern would have been, well, geez, there were hundreds of strings and so many, there was thousands of DOMs. They gave each one a name, Jimmy, or, you know, you could have an R2-D2 DOM, you can have a Darth Vader DOM. It was like, it was, you know, they were, you know, somebody had to call it something. Some of them had numbers, some of them had names. But yeah, so those detectors were looking for these neutrino to muon conversion points. And the idea, I mean, first and foremost, is pretty profound that they now know things can go faster than the speed of light. Confirmed. So I love when people are like, you can't argue with science, blah, 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 and the physics. Like, bro, physicists don't like their own answers. Yeah, that was one of the things that I spoke with one of the physicists at the South Pole Station, because when we were, you know, looking out into the cosmos, lest we forget, the physics as presented is we're looking back in time. It's also a fun consideration when you're standing at the South Pole in the middle of winter out into these star clusters and realizing, you know, technically I'm looking at ancient history. So I would talk with some of these folks there, and one of the explanations that I was told to, so I knew what I was being presented was bad information, but I couldn't really explain how. And he gave me a how. He said, this is the way that you know you're right. So he said, here's the Earth where we're at. It's the epicenter of our perception. He says, our science is limited because of our way to observe it. He said, so we look at the cosmos by how far we can observe, and that's limited by light, our observable universe. He said, so we can basically look outwardly, he said, to the distance of about 4.5 billion years, because that's as far as our tools and testing stuff does. So then the light has to go out that far and bounce back for us to functionally perceive. So we limit ourselves by the stuff that's inside that bubble. And we created all of our science based on that fact, everything that's in that bubble that can be perceived. But what science knows is that there's stuff outside the bubble. And what science also knows, there's more outside the bubble than inside the bubble. So simple logic dictates that if you're going to actually try to explain our reality without discussing or adding in the value of anything outside of the bubble, you're wrong. That's it. Straight up, right off the bat, it's a simple logic. Your answer isn't actually right. It may look that way from inside the bubble. It may function well inside the bubble. But technically, it's not true. something still else going on. And this would be where in antiquity, before we had the split of a term like alchemy, way back when there was like the study of reality, and that's
Mm-hmm.
it. Now we have, like science and religion and, mystery schools and things like that. But way back when, we just basically had like reality and the mystery schools, which dealt in the conversation of things that were mysterious or unknown or unreal or couldn't be observed, but were still respected as being outside of observation, but of value to inside this bubble. At least some sort of conversation would have to occur about the unknown. They do not even want to discuss that it exists at all. They want to operate inside that 4.5 billion year bubble. All of
Mm-hmm.
their information comes from inside of that. And it
Comes
describes inside the bubble
from
really well. But that would be like
the
a fish being in the fish tank and then trying to describe what's going on around the block. Yes, because there's still more unknown than known. And yet here we are constantly discussing reality, what can be known, without even first admitting there's an unknown.
I live in a small town. I live in an apartment complex, and most of the people here are still watching network news.
Okay,
And
that's unfortunate.
that is their complete reality.
Mm-hmm.
And when the TikTok video was shown on network news a year and a half ago, that was when they showed an interest for all of half a day. They were terrified. I mean, seriously, they were terrified because network news said that ET was real and showed a video and said, the Pentagon has verified this is real. And I told them those beings have been here for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and you're okay.
This is the sham.
And they said, oh, okay, and went back to their work during the week and party all weekend. So,
Yep. It's unfortunate that they just believe what comes out of the boob tube. This is part of my frustration. I spent a year down at the South Pole Station, and I learned very much that there is not a problem with global warming in Antarctica. Trust me. I was there. That's how this works. People say, well, if somebody knew something, they would say something. Yeah, you're getting lied to. I'm telling you, I was there. And in 2010, the science was everything's cool and getting cooler and colder. And if you go check the numbers yourself, like I mentioned earlier, the negative minus 100 ambient temperature that prior to my arrival wasn't happening all the time. Has been happening more and more since I left because it's getting colder and colder. Those are the facts. Everybody in Antarctica laughs hearing about the global warming stuff off ice because everyone's just getting lied to. But because I don't get to pay for the news to get produced or the research to go out there, no one listens to the plumber that was there. They listen to the Rockefeller-funded History Channel show that has an agenda base that wants to say, a glacier broke off the ice in Antarctica, so global warming's the problem. It's getting warmer, and that's a lie. It's getting colder. The ice is accumulating more, but because the mechanics of the ice, when it goes out over the water and grows and grows and grows and grows and grows because it's getting colder and growing, then eventually it can't support itself anymore and it snaps off, and that's natural. That's part of the process of a growing glacier that's healthy. It is not the negative impact of global warming like everyone's being lied to. I would love for any flat earth person to talk to me because the planet's round. I've pretty much flown around most of it. I've been at the South Pole Station for an entire Sunday cycle. So, I mean, it is what it is. It doesn't do anything the flat earth people say. And anybody, I mean, literally anybody can wake up on any given day and not have to deal with a flat earther because you can just ask them what time it is and the sun is up and then ask them if the sun is up on the entire planet. No? Okay, then it ain't flat. Good night. As far as I am concerned, the entire flat earth movement is a CIA psyop that got pushed into the truth community, whatever you want to call it, the searchers. It was some BS to derail people and make them look like buffoons. That's all it is. There's a little known faction in our history. I believe you've heard of them. But this is very referenceable, and everyone should actually become familiar with the term COINTELPRO. 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 Learn the history of your country.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. Way back when, COINTELPRO, I believe, was operating out of a desk of the FBI, technically. But what they were doing was infiltrating. I'm paraphrasing, but this was according to their paperwork that was found. Their intentions were to infiltrate everything, every argument. It doesn't really matter if you were pro-war or against the war. They would infiltrate both sides. If you were pro-choice or pro-life, they infiltrate both sides. This is what they do. They get into every conversation and weasel their way in to the point of running the conversation. As long as you're within the margins, they'll control the conversation up to here and up to here. And then, you know, anything outside of that side is crazy. Anything outside that side is crazy. Knowledge is power. Sharing it matters, right? Here's another thing that's, you know, with what's going on in the world and the community. I can go to YouTube and I can look at the videos that are being pumped around the mainstream, and it blows my mind, the junk that people are watching, the insane things that, I mean, it is what it is. To each their own. But there's content creators that have, you know, I don't know, 86,000 subscribers, and 4 minutes after they put up a YouTube video of them, like, petting their cat or something, they get like 500,000 views.
Yeah.
This is where people's attention is. I think Hitler did something similar to the Reichstag building. When he burned it down, he blamed his opponents.
Exactly.
Like, it is possible to show up to a room first and lie first, and then force everybody else to do the work to prove you wrong. I believe that was very much a Hitler tactic also. They'll believe the lie. They'll believe the thing they're told first, no matter what it is. And then when you present them the truth, they'll attack it and make you prove that. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book, actually. Share your story. Be honest. Step out of the shadows. Make a YouTube video. Go ahead, put it up. Put deciphering my experience and your name behind the video, and tell your story, something odd about your life. You don't have to give your whole life story. Share something that you think no one else would believe, but it's your life story. And just put in the title, Deciphering My Experience, your name, tell your story, and let everybody start realizing that we can become more comfortable with sharing our stories. We don't have to hide in the shadows. We don't have to have matching histories to have positive futures.
In speech class, we were taught something called rhetoric that's no longer taught anywhere. And that has to do with being able to do both sides of a discussion and figure out which one you agree with, but still be able to argue the other side.
Yes, that's a lost art today. Everybody has 50% of the conversation they can carry.
Yeah, they cannot fathom the other side of the discussion.
Dictionaries way back when had so much information in them about like sentence structures and language, and almost a complete through high school education you would find in older dictionaries, and you just had to read it. And, you know, you could accomplish a lot with just that book. And people way back when had the wherewithal. They didn't have the distractions and their base education was a lot higher, and they knew how to
Yeah.
think. They were given the tools to think.
There was a woman who wrote a book called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America.
I'm
And
recollecting it.
it's free on her website. You can download the PDF. And she was part of the Reagan administration. So this has been an ongoing problem for at least 40 years.
Yep. It's one of the first things people need to realize is that the problems that we have are operating over long timetables. These are long cons. These con men are operating on long timetables because they can afford to. They're not buying in for the short game. They're buying in for the long con.
Exactly. Their proposition is to control the population entirely.
I keep hearing stories about how everything's going to get better. And I mean, if you literally just take away what's being thrown on the mass media, right? I don't want to discuss the presentation, but if you literally just look at the world around you in your day-to-day activities, what's not tyranny going on? Like, forget the story. I don't want to talk about why we're doing it, and people justifying what they're seeing. I want people to just walk around and describe what they're seeing. And then ask yourself if you ever thought that you would see anything like this going on. And then ask yourself if you would then believe that you would allow this to happen for what they told you it happened for. There's some lying going on in our planet.